Okay, so game one, round one here. Basically, immediately presented with a decision on our hand. I felt it was okay. So this is a decent amount of action in this hand, even without drawing the swamp. And with the wilds and the wastes, I think there's enough fixing to just kind of play this game out with just the Bloodseeker, especially because this combo holds off a pretty decently sized assault. So as we can develop the early game state here, first decision of the game is I don't make this attack here. Obviously, I don't want to trade, and I don't want to. I just don't want to trade. That's very obvious. Play our other guy, which I'm willing to shove into here because I don't really feel like hasting out the vampire is necessary. He plays a Midnight Guard. In this turn, I make the attack with a Bloodseeker. Those are kind of crappy guys to trade to Stoke the Flames for, but it is a 2-for-1, and it does keep him off of a Triplicate Spirits the next turn, and that was my big concern. I am completely colded by Ephemeral Shields, but I was kind of willing to accept that beating. He ends up blocking, I kill his guy, get my guy first strike, his other guy gets first struck down. Pretty simple interaction there. Follow up Midnight Guard. I don't feel like bluffing a crowd's favor here. Just pass the turn, wait for my swamp to show up. He's going to mark of honor his creature. I actually have no idea why he didn't just attack with it. So I'm just not going to even begin to question that. But so this turn, I'm presented with the option of immediately stab wounding his guy or developing my board position with the vampire. I opt to vampire on the basis that his next attack is not great. Excuse me. And I think that maximizing my mana in that board state's more important. Also, there's a chance that I don't actually have to stab wound this guy, because if I just draw another swamp, I'm at 7 mana to cast Slyblade and leave up the first strike Death Touch. So I don't really have to make the decision. And even though the vampire does make me want to have enough life to be able to fly over and continuously beat him down, I don't think I need the life on that attack there. So I think I'd rather think the tempo and potential for not having to use the stab wound is more important. No attacks. Again, shoving this guy into a single guy is not optimal, especially when it has more than 4 toughness. So he's going to play a Pilgrim, completely failed to find. Play a Rummaging Goblin. This attack, I have no good blocks on. I'm not trading 2 of my guys for that when I have the ability to trade this for it, or just to stab wound it and just have a stab wound in play and race him with a Phantom Warrior effectively. The chump block. I'm trying to think of why I actually chump blocked here. I think it had to strictly do with the vampire. It's kind of interesting because like this guy can actually trade for one of his other guys, so not sold that was actually right in retrospect. But I ended up saving the life here. I feel like the 2 power could have been more relevant, but I end up stab wounding his guy, playing my Krenko's Enforcer. I did pay 2 life on that. I just want to double check. Okay, so I did fly this guy. Not flying that would be terrible because he could just block with these 2, and I'm trading my vampire for a 1/2 or a guy that has stab wound on it. Anyways, we're racing my effective 6 unblockable power versus his effective 4. It works out well for me, especially because I'm adding this to the board. Things get a bit hairy here because he plays quite a good one. Johnny. He opts to plus it on this guy, which I thought was a little weird. I felt like minusing it on this board might be better. Regardless, I'm going to play my Slyblade because I get to convoke this with that if I decide on a different attack. And by different, I mean not just the evasive guys. And even then, I can use the Slyblade to convoke with the Bloodseeker on a block, which I think is my original plan. So I'm going to shove it at Johnny. I kind of blanked on him having red creatures here. but I do need to get that card off the board. Order like that. I make the decision to kill one of his blockers and take creatures off the board because I wasn't too threatened by the +1 ability on a Johnny. Him getting 3 more life wasn't a huge thing in my mind. Uh, and this guy being in play when he has no red creatures is pretty big. So the Stoke comes down, he loses creatures, Johnny goes to 1. I'm not sure on that, if that was actually correct at that point. It's possible I should have just saved the Stoke, killed his guy, and could have killed a Johnny there. I don't really think that's right. I think if I don't kill a Johnny there, I want this card in play. So he puts the +1 on here, so I can't trade this Bloodseeker, which is fine, but I think him costing himself a life there is a lot more... I wouldn't say a lot more important, actually. He gets an additional 1 damage this way, so it's 1 of his life for 1 of mine, which actually seems fine with my Shadow Cloak Vampire. Anyways, Johnny's going to die this turn. Shadow Cloak coming at him. Kranko's Enforcer at a Johnny. Not pushing either of these guys in because I actually want the Stab Wound to hang out and deal damage to him. So he plays a Skirmisher, pumps his Midnight Guard. Not his Midnight Guard this turn. Why do I keep thinking he makes plays that make sense to me? Rather than like leaving this guy in defense. But he pumps his guy, and I decide that this turn is the turn that I absolutely can't take damage, especially because that would put me into Lava X range. So Lightning Strike there. Not really sure why I made that specific line as to play. I'm just trying to think if there's a reason for me to do that pre-blocks or not. I guess it lets me, if he shields that, decide to block it, which I actually would. So if he has Ephemeral Shields as his last card, protects that, I would throw the Bloodseeker under the bus, put the Slyblade here, first strike this guy down. So again, I don't fall into Lava X range, because I feel like my board is just so far ahead of his that it's not worth it. I'd rather trade off this guy than the Slyblade again if he has shields, which he probably doesn't. And there isn't a pump spell. He could first strike, but that's going to kill either of my guys. And again, I'd rather just kill this guy than the Slyblade at this point. He just has land. I squad in with all but 1 creature. Just thinking through. I don't want to trade this guy off, so I don't send it in. I don't know if that's... If he has some kind of trick or pump spell, I guess leaving this guy back is a little better. But I think I would rather get the damage in. He's drawing off the top. I actually don't know which of those creatures is better to attack with. Actually might have been the Bloodseeker. The other thing, too, is that, yeah, that was actually a pretty big mistake. I should have attacked with the... Not pretty big, but reasonably big. I should have attacked with the Bloodseeker. Allowed him to trade, because I'm actually okay if he trades and goes to 6. And this board state is very vulnerable to Cone of Flame, whereas this board state is slightly less vulnerable. Though I guess I guaranteed have a guy back if he cones, because like he can attack, induce the block, or I guess this guy's still in play. So I guess, so to walk this through, if he draws Cone of Flame as his card, which is probably the best thing he could draw, if I leave this guy back, he gets to kill these guys. I have a Slyblade versus his 2/2, and I'm actually just straight up ahead in that board state, so that's fine. Whereas if I leave back the Slyblade, he attacks, I'm induced to block and first strike Death Touch because he could have Lava Axe. And then he cones down these guys, and I have a Bloodseeker, which is a significantly worse card to have at this point. So I think that leaving back the Bloodseeker is correct based on that very narrow corner case analysis. Regardless, he just has a Pegasus. Now we have this combat step. I'm going to opt to shove with everybody. Again, the fear is that Lava Axe, but a shove with everybody forces both of these guys to block and die, so he can't have a threat, and he's just drawing off the top. Whereas a shove with just these guys, he can block here with the Pegasus, go to 1 life, and then potentially draw something out of it, like Mass Calcify. He is nothing, the game ends. So this hand is clearly awesome. Uh, this Fester Gloom is kind of comical. I opt to play Forge Devil here on the basis that I get to Ulcerate plus Bloodseeker next turn, down whatever he has, and have like a haste threat. Um, it's debatable. I could have just not done that, and if I draw a mountain, I get to set up the Bloodseeker trigger twice. But I guess I'm only gaining effective 1 damage out of that, and if I don't draw the mountain, that kind of is stupid. So Pilgrim hits. He gets his Marked by Honor. I attack with the rats. I don't want to use the Ulcerate until I can also take the Marked with it. I get to leave a Stoke here as well, which is pretty nice. If I decide to. I guess there's nothing I really would want to Stoke, so just playing the Bloodseeker is better. So it feels kind of crappy to lose the Bloodseeker trigger, but I guess there's worse things to do than trade 1 mana for 7 mana in a card. So we continue the most embarrassing Fester Gloom beatdown curve, where it kills 3 of my creatures. Yeah, this Fester Gloom, man. Something else. And he continues to do nothing. I think at this point I kind of have to worry about Mass Calcify, and that's about it. I guess Triplicate Spirits next turn is the card. He has Hushwing Griff. Yeah, I don't know. He trades it for Generator Servant. I'm really not sure why he has the fear of that card over the Bloodseeker, but again, that's beyond me. He starts tapping some mana. It's not a Triplicate Spirits, therefore A+ on my part. He makes a weird decision to plus a Johnny here instead of minus and get a 2/3 blocker for my creatures. There's not really much to say about that besides I don't really understand it. I KO the Pegasus, and I actually make a mistake right here. So I'm going to kill a Johnny here, but let's just do some math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. Player on Thundering Giant if I attack a Johnny, but other than that, nothing really I'm playing around because it's lethal damage. So I have to continue playing this game. To be fair, I'm in a pretty advantaged board state of him having 2 cards in hand to my basically nothing. Or to my basically everything, sorry. Casting Stoke, tapping Forge Devil, killing whatever he has seems very reasonable. Put him to 4, which, if I draw a mountain, is lethal. Especially now that he's revealed that he doesn't have another creature to block with. Siege Dragon hits, which is going to wipe out my board next turn if I don't have something. But I draw the Lightning Strike for lethal, so it's completely non-relevant. I was killing with any with like Mountain. If I draw any land, I'm putting it in position to not attack because I have Chieftain. And the reason, by the way, this kills him because I put it on a 1 power guy, shove with everything. He either has to block the 3 power guy or die, and then I get to throw it at his face. But the Lightning Strike wraps it up cleanly.